Hi everyone, I'm Wendy and today I'm making whole food plant-based buckwheat pancakes. I'll show you two different oil-free cooking methods and I have the written recipe linked in the details below the video. Let's get right into it. First, we need to mix up our batter, and one batch will make about 10 pancakes. I'll start with the wet ingredients. I have 1.5 cups of plant-based milk and a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. To this, I'm also adding 2 tablespoons of flaxseed. Even though this isn't a liquid, I'm adding it with the liquid ingredients so it can start to turn into a gel consistency. Then I've got the dry ingredients. First up is 1.5 cups of flour. I'm using about 1 cup of buckwheat flour and about 1/2 cup of oat flour, but you can change up the proportions if you like one more than the other, or you can even experiment with different kinds of flour. Next, I have 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and a couple tablespoons of date sugar. And I'm sifting all of that because mine is a little clumpy. Finally, I'm adding in 1 teaspoon of vanilla bean powder. I'll whisk the dry ingredients together to make sure everything is evenly distributed, and then I'll pour the wet ingredients in and combine. Then, as promised, I'm showing you 2 different methods for oil-free pancakes. Of course, you can use a traditional method of cooking them on the stovetop, but you'll just need to make sure you have a really good non-stick pan. For the best results, make sure your pan is preheated before adding the batter. Then I like to use about 1/4 cup of batter. You can use a regular measuring cup and scoop it out with a spatula, but I like to use these ice cream scoops instead. This one is about 1/4 cup, and that makes it really easy to scoop out even pancakes. As with any pancake batter, it will thicken as it sits, so you can always add more milk as needed to get the right consistency. Then you'll cook these for about 4 or 5 minutes until the edges start to dry out and you see a couple bubbles in the center. Carefully flip your pancakes and cook a few more minutes until they're golden on the outside and completely cooked through on the inside. This method gives you nice golden pancakes, but you'll have to cook them in batches, depending on how many you can fit in your pan. The second method I like to use is to bake them in the oven. This way you can make a large batch of pancakes and they'll all be done at the same time. For the oven method, I have a silicone-lined baking sheet. Of course, you could also use parchment paper instead. Once again, I'm using my ice cream scoop to lay out the pancakes on the baking sheet, and I'll just flatten them out a little bit with the back of the scoop. These won't spread too much, so you can put them pretty close together. And for this method, it's okay if the batter is a little thicker than usual, since we're putting it on a cold baking sheet instead of a hot pan. Another method for oven-baked pancakes is simply to pour all of the batter in a thin layer on a parchment-lined sheet pan. This is typically how people bake pancakes, more like a regular cake, and then after baking you cut it into squares. But I like this method of scooping them out because then you get that traditional pancake shape. I'm baking these at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 8 minutes, and then I'll flip them. You don't have to flip them, but I like to flip to make sure they're evenly cooked. The main difference between the stovetop and oven version is how it looks. The stovetop version is a prettier golden color, while the oven-baked version doesn't get that same color on top. But the overall texture is pretty similar either way. And that's all there is to it. These are ready to eat along with your favorite pancake toppings such as date syrup or maple syrup and slices of fresh fruit. And sometimes we like to make a simple blueberry syrup by gently simmering wild blueberries with a little bit of date sugar or other sweetener to suit your tastes. I like making a double batch so I can freeze the pancakes, and whenever I want some, I'll simply defrost a few and warm them up in the oven, a toaster, or in the microwave. I hope you enjoyed these oil-free pancakes. Hit the thumbs up if you love breakfast food, and check out this playlist for more plant-based breakfast ideas. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.